And everyone can be seated. Now, members of the jury will continue by turning to the state to call its next witness. Fiorella Covier.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you please, right here?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Please state your name, spelling both your first and last name for the court reporter.
Fiorella Cavaias, Fiorella Covais.
How are you employed, ma'am?
A crime scene tech at the Tampa Police Department.
Now, how long have you been employed with the Tampa Police Department in that capacity?
6 years.
Did you have prior employment in that field?
No.
Okay. Tell us about your training, education, and experience that qualifies you for your present position as a crime scene technician, please.
I have a bachelor's degree out of St. Leo, and I have a 1-year forensics out of St. Pete.
Okay. What do you do in your job as a crime scene technician for Tampa Police Department?
Take photographs and collect evidence and process evidence as requested.
Were you working on January 28th of 2011?
Yes.
And in that capacity as a Tampa Police Department crime scene technician, did you become involved in the investigation of the deaths of Calix and Bo Schenecker?
Yes.
When did your involvement begin?
At 10:51 that morning.
And where did you become involved?
At the Tampa Police headquarters, I was asked to go upstairs to the 8th floor.
And the 8th floor of the Tampa Police Department building in downtown Tampa, does that include, among other things, the homicide section?
Yes.
Outside the homicide section, is there a secure wire mesh holding cell?
Yes.
Okay. Is that where you first became involved in this investigation?
Yes.
Okay. And what were you tasked to do at that time, date, and location?
To photograph and to collect evidence from Ms. Schenecker.
From this defendant?
Yes.
Okay. And did you do that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you a series of photographs, counsel. Do you need to see them again?
No, go ahead.
From the top to the bottom, exhibits 80, 81, 82A, 82B, 82C, 82D, 82E, and 82F. And I would ask you if first, well, please just take a look at each one of them. Are those photographs that you took?
Yes.
Those photographs that you took specifically of either the defendant, Ms. Schenecker, or items of clothing that she was wearing as they appeared at the 8th floor holding cell of the Tampa Police Department on Friday, January 28th of 2011?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately depict those images that you photographed?
Yes.
You know, I'd move those exhibits into evidence.
No objection, Judge. Received without objection.
States 80, please. States 80, is that a photo of the defendant as she appeared sitting in the holding cell at that date, time, and location?
Yes.
And describe for the purpose of the written record what she was wearing at the time.
Blue and white striped pajamas and a white robe.
Did you take close-up shots of the clothing she was wearing?
Yes.
States Exhibit number 81, please. And is this a close-up of the hands and the jewelry of Ms. Schenecker as she was wearing at that time?
Yes.
What are the items on the left side of the photograph for the purpose of the written record?
Water and some type of cookies or snacks.
Okay. And that, to your knowledge, had that been provided to her while she was sitting in that location?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Was it accessible to her?
Yes.
Okay. States Exhibit number 82, please. I'm sorry. Not a photograph. The white robe that is shown in States 80, and it's shown in 81 also, a portion of it, did you collect that from Mrs. Schenecker?
Yes.
Let me show you what's been marked by identification in States Exhibit number 82. And you don't need to remove it from the interior packaging, but from inspection of the item and markings on the packaging, can you determine what is inside the containers marked States 82?
Yes.
And what is States 82, ma'am?
The white the white robe.
Worn by Ms. Schenecker as you saw her on January 28th of 2011?
Yes.
Judge of States 82 in evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Receive without objection. And during the time that you spent with Ms. Schenecker on that day, did you notice red stains on various locations of that white robe, States 82?
Yes.
Did you photograph each of the locations where you saw those red stains?
Yes.
Thank you. States 82A, please. And if you need to, you can refer to the photograph that you have in front of you, because it may lose some definition from the enlargement across the room. Can you describe, for the purpose of the written record, where you saw the red substance or stain as it's captured on this exhibit, States 82?
Around the collar.
Which, as she's wearing the robe, which color? And is this the left, bless you, the hands and the left sleeve of the robe?
Yes.
And does it also show some location of red staining?
Yes.
And could you describe for the written record where you saw that?
Around the cuff area and around the sleeve.
The sleeve area near the left elbow?
Yes.
Okay. But are you pointing to the approximate areas where you saw it?
Yes.
States 82C, please. Another perspective of the front of the robe and the left arm.
Yes.
And again, does it show more of the staining at the inside of the left elbow on the sleeve of the robe?
Yes.
Thank you. 82D, please. What portion of the robe were we seeing in this photograph?
That's the robe. It's the lower right side of the robe.
Okay. And do you see a variety of red stains at locations, as I indicate with my fingers,
Yes.
and also on the sleeve?
Correct.
Did you also see a spot on the pajamas bottoms,
Yes.
on the right leg?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. 82E, please. Is this the bottom left corner of the robe?
Yes,
And 2 locations of apparent staining, as I indicate with my fingers, is that right?
correct.
Thank you. Now, did you do any cuttings or swabbings from the robe to attempt to secure DNA?
No,
Did you immediately then package the robe and secure it in the TPD evidence room for later testing by any other agency?
yes,
Okay. Did you collect the pajamas from Mrs. Schenecker, if you can recall?
yes,
Right. And place those in evidence?
correct.
States 81, please, if you could go back. Thank you. Was Ms. Schenecker wearing a watch on her left wrist at the time you saw her?
Yes,
Okay, and did you collect that from her?
yes,
Showing you States Exhibit 83, an unopened manila envelope. From the container and markings on the container, do you recognize that envelope to contain the wristwatch that you collected from Ms. Schenecker?
yes,
Okay, thank you. I've moved States 83 into evidence, sir.
No objection, Judge.
Proceed without objection.
Now, did you do any type of fingerprint processing of Ms. Schenecker or any attempted DNA testing of any substance that you identified?
no,
Okay. As a practical matter, you don't do DNA work, do you?
correct.
Okay. No further questions.
You may cross-examine, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
It would be fair to say that you never went to the residence of the Scheneckers.
Yes,
Your portion of this investigation was confined entirely to the about an hour and 15 minutes or so you spent in the presence of our client at 411 North Franklin Street, Tampa Police Department.
correct.
And you took a lot of pictures over there. You didn't attempt to, you said just a moment ago, you didn't do any DNA analysis or try to take fingerprints or anything of that nature.
Correct.
And is it accurate to say that you were in the presence of our client for about an hour and 15 minutes or somewhere in that neck of the woods?
Yes,
Specifically, do you have a report that reflects exactly how long you were in her presence?
yes,
Can you tell the jury?
yes. I was there at 10:51 and I left at 12:05.
So about an hour and 14 minutes then?
Correct.
Okay. During that time, was she constantly in your line of vision? Were you constantly in her presence?
No,
About how much of that hour and 14 minutes, or exactly how much of that hour and 14 minutes, if you can, tell us, were you in her presence, immediate presence?
okay. I would say approximately 45 minutes. I did have to leave that area to go across the hall and speak with detectives a few times.
Okay, so about 45
approximately-
minutes?
Correct.
I want to ask you about some of your observations of our client. Would it be accurate to say, and fair to say, that she was able to follow instructions when she was given them in your presence?
Yes,
For example, perhaps you wanted to take a picture of a portion of a robe or hands or whatever. I take it you wanted her to stand in a certain way or pose in a certain way to be able to effectively take your picture?
correct.
So you followed up your necessity with some instruction to Ms. Schenecker?
Yes,
And it would be fair to say that she was able to follow your instructions?
yes,
However, would it also be accurate to say that she seemed to be, to you, uneasy on her feet?
yes,
Little, maybe losing her balance, tottering a little bit?
correct.
In terms of taking her picture, I noticed that pictures were taken in a seated position. That's not normally the way you would do that, correct?
Correct.
You would normally take a picture of a person that's in such a situation standing up. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
In this situation, it's accurate to say, though, that you took her picture sitting down?
Correct.
Is that a reflection of the uneasiness that you perceived that she was having as far as staying on her feet?
Yes.
Okay. And I take it you did not notice any alcohol in her breath?
I do not recall.
And in terms of your presence with her, how close were you? Were you, I take it you're taking a picture from pretty close range according to the pictures we looked at. How far away were you from her when you took those pictures?
Some of them I was a few feet away to get the overall shots. Some of them I was obviously up close to her enough to touch her with, the camera and different things like that.
Certainly you would have been in a position that you would have been able to notice alcohol in her breath if from that range, correct?
Correct.
And does your report reflect that you noticed any alcohol in her breath at all?
No, that is not something that I jot down on my notes as a crime scene technician.
And as we speak now, you have no memory or no specific memory of noticing alcohol in her breath?
Correct.
And I take it that there were no comments or statements made by Ms. Schenecker during the hour and 14 minutes, or that you were near her in the 45 minutes you were specifically next to her?
Correct.
And you didn't try to conduct any kind of an interview of her?
Correct.
I want to ask you something else about your observation of our client. Would it be accurate to say that she was shaking, physically shaking, and noticeably shaking in your presence?
Yes.
In addition to her being uneasy on her feet, would you notice that her hands were shaking?
Yes.
You have no particular special training in these kind of observations, but those are just observations you made by proximity to Ms. Schenecker and your just ability to see those things, correct?
Yes.
So you're telling us and telling the jury your observations that day, those 45 minutes that you were with her. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that you went in and out from time to time to talk to the detectives about the case. I take it you were getting an overview of the case from them?
Yes, and getting instructions on specifically what areas they needed photographed and specifically what items they wanted collected.
And I take it you didn't share any information with Ms. Schenecker or ask her for any information?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions, Judge.
Redirect them.
Briefly, once the clothing, the robe and pajamas were collected from Ms. Schenecker, was she provided some type of jumpsuit to wear?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Corey.
May this witness be excused?
Yes.
Counsel.
Yes, Judge.
Ma'am, you may step down and you're free to go.
Thank you.
State may call us next witness.
Officer Sonia McCarty.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? So you please swear.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your full name, spelling your last name for the court reporter.
Sanja McCaughey, MCC-AUGHEY,
How are you employed, ma'am?
with Tampa Police Department.
In what capacity?
I'm now a corporal.
And in what assignment?
I work as a corporal, street patrol, Sector C,
Okay.
District 2.
Back in January of 2011, were you employed, well, excuse me, how long have you been employed with Tampa Police Department?
This July coming will be 18 years.
And were you employed and working on January 28th of 2011?
Yes.
Were you scheduled to work that day?
No.
Okay. was your assignment at that time?
I worked family violence.
Okay. And what were you doing at the police station that Friday?
I was also on a task force, and I was working task force cases that day.
Okay. At some point, did you receive a request, verbal or otherwise, from any member of the homicide division?
Yes,
And what were you requested to do?
to come sit with a female.
Okay. Did you respond affirmatively to that request? Did
Yes.
you do that?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you go to do that?
I went down to homicide, down the hallway.
Is that on the 8th floor of the Tampa Police Department building downtown?
Yes.
Okay. And at that location, who did you meet? Did you meet a female?
I did.
There's a lot of stuttering. And where was that female?
She was inside of the holding cell on the 8th floor.
All right. Let me show you State's Exhibit 80, please. And the person that you ran into or came into contact with at that location was this defendant, Julie Schenecker?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a photograph of her, the way she appeared at that location at that date?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what information were you provided about why Ms. Schenecker was in the holding cell at the 8th floor of the police department prior to your sitting with her?
I wasn't provided. Sorry.
What information?
I wasn't told anything.
Okay. And when you were tasked to sit with her, what did you understand your responsibilities to be?
I was asked if I would mind sitting with the female for a few minutes. I thought I was going to be sitting with a female for a few minutes.
Okay. And how long approximately did you sit with the defendant that day?
Around an hour, if not a little bit more.
Okay. And how was it that duty ended? Was Ms. Schenecker taken by other detectives for an interview?
Yes.
Okay. Who were those detectives? Do you recall? Would have been Sandell?
Yes, Gary Sandell and Steve Prebich.
All right. During the time that you were with Mrs. Schenecker, was she provided food and beverages?
Yes.
At any time during that approximate hour, did you see Ms. Schenecker appear to doze off?
I did.
Describe what you saw.
She had a water bottle in her hands, and the water bottle started to tilt a little bit, and she was dozing off. I went to go grab the water, but she woke up and brought the water bottle upright again.
So how long a period of time would she have been appearing to doze off, would you estimate?
Oh, maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds. It was very quick when I saw her doze off with the water. I didn't want the water to spill on her.
All right. During the time that you sat with her, did Ms. Schenecker make any statements to you?
She made utterances.
Okay. Well, let me ask it this way. Did you conduct an interview with Ms.
No.
Schenecker?
No.
And did you have any idea of what she was suspected of having been involved in during the time you sat with her for an hour?
No.
Okay. Obviously, you saw that she was handcuffed.
Yes.
Okay. And that she may be involved or a focus in some type of investigation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us what you recall, and well, let me stop. Did you prepare a supplemental report setting forth your activities and observations on that date?
I did.
And was that information placed in that report form at or near the time of the events that you were recorded? And I mean not audio recorded, but you recorded in the report.
As soon as I left the room, I went and typed up supplement.
Okay. And would reviewing that report refresh your recollection on the specific statements that you heard and placed in the report?
She made a comment, I just hugged my kids.
Okay.
And I said, oh, who are your kids? And there was not another comment for a little bit. And then she said, I shot him. I was going to shoot myself, but I fell asleep.
Okay. Was there any other statements?
Probably about, I believe it was 10 minutes later, she told me I need to go pick up my son. And I said, oh, where is he? And he goes, in the garage. And I said, okay, I'll let somebody know. And I asked her what was your son's name, and she said Bo.
Okay. Did you relay that information to anyone about the son?
Yes, it was either to, I think that one was to Sandell.
Okay. Were there any other statements made by the defendant at that point?
She didn't like chocolate, and when we were changing out her outfit that she had on, she made the comment that she was glad she was not wearing orange.
Did you collect any evidence from the defendant at that date and time?
Her clothes that she had on.
Okay. And those were actually taken into custody by a crime scene technician?
Correct. They were, yeah, we took them off. She bagged after she photographed.
Okay. Did Mrs. Schenecker need any assistance removing her clothes for you to collect them?
No, but we assisted because I didn't want to contaminate the clothing. So I would just have her like step out, but I wanted to make sure that everything that was on the clothes kind of stayed on the clothes. So
Okay.
I kind of assisted in that direction.
Did she stand while she was removing her pajamas?
Yes, she did.
Was there any unsteadiness about her ability to stand up?
No.
Okay. Did you have to support her at the time she was removing her clothes?
No.
What type of object of clothing was provided to Mrs. Schenecker?
We call it a biosuit.
And what's that?
It's kind of like a papery cloth fabric, elastic, snaps, buttons. I believe this was a pair of pants, some booties, and maybe a shirt or a jacket that went over it. And it's all white.
Okay. And did you assist her in any fashion putting that on?
Probably helped her with the pants.
Okay.
But other than that, no.
All right. You said it had some type of snaps in the front?
The jacket had either, now I don't remember if it had snaps or not, but I know she had a jacket too.
Okay. Was she able to put on the clothes other than with some assistance for the pants?
Oh, yes,
And she was able to put on the rest of the clothes without assistance from you?
correct.
Did you ever see her lose her balance during this process and have to put her hand against the wall or steady her hand herself with either you or the crime scene technician?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Corporal.
Good morning, or afternoon. Just, I was in a task force capacity.
Okay, but you were at work. You were scheduled to work that day.
No, I was not scheduled to work, but I was there to work my task force cases.
Okay. And,
Overtime.
I'm sorry?
Overtime.
Overtime. Okay. When you were there that day, were you dressed in civilian clothes or dressed the way you are this afternoon?
Regular clothes.
Was your office located on the 8th floor?
Yes, I'm at the east end and homicide's at the west end.
Okay, so at that time, back in 2011, that was the floor that you were assigned to.
Correct.
When you went to the 8th floor, you said you weren't told anything but asked to sit with a female that was in the holding cell.
Correct.
Now, at that time, was Miss Schenecker in handcuffs?
Yes,
Okay, and the handcuffs were to her front, not to the back?
in front of her.
When you were there, you said there was a time when she fell asleep and was possibly going to spill some water, so you went to help, and then she woke up?
Correct.
Okay. Was that an ongoing thing that was occurring, that she was dozing off, or was it just the one time that she dozed off?
That was the one time.
Okay. Did she appear to be lethargic?
I wouldn't say lethargic, but she was quiet, complacent.
Okay. What time did you start observing or sitting with Ms. Schenecker?
I was asked at 10:20 to come down.
Okay. So at 10:20 you came down. At that time, did you have any idea how long Ms. Schenecker had been there?
No.
Okay. Were you taking over for someone who was leaving from watching her at that time?
I was just asked to come down there and said I had no knowledge of who she was or what she had done, why
Okay.
she was there.
At that time when you're there watching Ms. Schenecker, she's in a room that has the bars.
It's called a holding cell.
Okay. And so it's something that's locked. She can't just get up and walk out of it.
I don't believe the door was shut.
Okay. So that you don't believe the door was shut, but there's a door there?
There is a door that you can close.
Okay. Was anyone else in the holding cell other than her?
No, just myself and her were in the room.
Were you sitting actually in the holding cell with her?
No, just right outside of the holding cell.
Okay. So you're outside of the holding cell, she's on the other side of the door, and your testimony is that the door was not closed at that point.
The door was not closed.
Okay. So when you got up to help with the water, it wasn't a situation where you had to open the door to go inside?
Correct.
When you first heard some statements from Ms. Schenecker, you relayed those statements to Detective Prebich?
Prebich was one, and then Sandell was another comment.
Okay. Now, as you're hearing these comments, are you writing them down, or are you directly going to the detectives and telling them at that point as soon as she's making the statements?
When she made the first statement, and not knowing what this case was about, I thought, I better write this down, because I wasn't going to interview her. So I started writing down, and then when I saw a detective, that's when I would say, hey, this statement was made.
Now, when you saw a detective, were the detectives walking back and forth, or did you go locate the detective after you wrote down the statement?
They would walk by. I didn't leave the holding cell area.
Okay, so the times that you write down the statements and you relay in your report that those statements are relayed and you give a time, that's when those detectives had passed by where you were located?
Correct.
Okay. And you relayed one of the statements to Detective Prebich at 10:40? The statement about hugging the kids?
Correct.
Okay. And her statement that she made to you was about hugging the kids, and then she said, I shot him, I wanted to shoot myself, but I fell asleep?
Correct.
Okay. After that statement was made, you wrote it down and then relayed it to the detective?
I don't believe, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know I wrote it down, and as soon as I saw the detective, I'm like, I don't know if this means anything, but here it is.
Okay. And then at that point, did you make any effort to record any of the conversations that you were having with Ms. Schenecker?
I would have had to leave the room, so no.
Okay. Did you request anyone to bring a recorder to you since
No.
she was making statements?
No.
Okay. When Ms. Schenecker made the second statement to you that she had to go pick up her son, at that point she's speaking about her son in the present tense?
I believe so. I had to go pick up my son. Yeah.
That was something she needed to do?
Yes.
And at that point, are there times when you've encountered people where they've asked you to make phone calls or to let someone know where they are?
I have in prior investigations.
Okay, so in other investigations, someone has asked you to do things like that.
Yeah.
In your comment, you ask her where her son is, and she says he's in the garage?
Correct.
Was there any other conversation other than her telling you what his name was?
Other than the
About that issue?
No.
Okay. And then there was a comment that she made about a cookie and there were some snacks or water provided to her.
Yeah.
Was that something that you did or was done prior to your arrival?
No, I think I did that for her. I wasn't sure how long she had been there or how long she was going to be. And
Was
we
it-
had stuff.
Was it your understanding that she was going to be interviewed after you were sitting with her?
Yes, I knew she was going to be interviewed. I
Okay.
had no idea what she was being interviewed for.
Okay, so you knew she was waiting to be interviewed. She had not been interviewed yet.
Correct.
And at the time when you were there, are you aware of who crime scene tech Kovias is?
Yes,
And was she there to photograph Ms. Schenecker at the time when you were sitting with her?
yes,
Okay, so that was something that was done in your presence?
correct.
And when Ms. Schenecker was photographed, she was photographed in a position where she was sitting?
I think we did it in several stages, yes.
Okay, and that was because she was unsteady on her feet and couldn't stand to be photographed?
I'm not sure why we photographed her sitting.
Okay. You don't remember why?
I don't remember why we photographed her
Do you
sitting.
remember, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I don't remember why we photographed her sitting.
Okay. Do you remember Ms. Schenecker shaking at all?
No, I don't remember her shaking.
Were you there for the entire time that crime scene tech Kovias was there documenting Ms. Schenecker?
Pretty much. I know the other two detectives were coming in as well, and we were wrapping up what we were doing. She might have been there a few minutes after I left.
Okay, so Kovias was there photographing Ms. Schenecker, collecting her clothing, and then she went to be interviewed?
Correct.
All right. And when Ms. Schenecker went to be interviewed was when you didn't have any contact with her after that?
Correct.
If I could have one moment.
Yes, sir.
One last question. Were any of those statements made in front of Kovias?
No. Well, maybe about the orange, but not about the cookies or things prior to that, no.
Okay. Nothing to...
Redirect.
No, thank you.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you may step down and you're free to go.
Thank you, sir.
State, you may call your next witness.
Gary Sandell.
You swear or affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Gary Sandell, Sandel,
How are you employed, sir?
City of Tampa Police Department,
And what's your present assignment?
homicide detective.
How long have you been with Tampa Police Department?
Approximately 20 years.
Do you have any other law enforcement experience?
Approximately 6 years with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in detention.
Okay. In your capacity as a homicide detective, were you involved in the investigation of the deaths of Calix and Bo Schenecker?
Yes, sir.
And did you become involved in that investigation on January 28th of 2011?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you actually go to the Schenecker home in Tampa Palms on that day?
Yes, sir, I did.
Later that date, did you return to the Tampa Police Department headquarters in downtown Tampa?
Yes.
Did you come in contact with this defendant, Julie Schenecker?
Yes, sir, I did.
And At approximately noon of that day, Friday, January 28th of 2011, did you conduct an interview with Ms. Schenecker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the course of that interview, did you see any red stain which you thought might be blood on Ms. Schenecker's hand or hands?
Yes, and also some on her clothes as well.
Okay. Well, during the interview, hadn't she been redressed in some type of jumpsuit provided
Yes.
by? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Your observations about her clothes, was that earlier?
Yes, and that was done prior to the interview.
Okay, but I'm just focusing on your observation during the actual interview.
Yes, sir.
And you saw what you thought might be blood on her hands?
Yes, sir.
Did you attempt to collect and preserve what the stain that you saw on her hands?
Yes.
And what did you do for that?
I believe I had Detective Prebich request one of the crime scene technicians, that would have been the same one that more than likely did the clothing, to swab her fingers and her hands.
I want to show you State's Exhibit number 81A. And you recognize that container and its interior packaging by information placed upon it?
Yes, sir.
And what do you recognize that to be?
My handwriting and Ms. Schenecker's information written on the outside.
Okay. And do you recognize that to be the swabbing of the defendant's hand and the area that you observed what you thought might be blood?
Yes, sir.
And was it packaged and then packaged in that manila envelope as it appears before you?
Yes, sir.
And placed into evidence for potential later DNA testing?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move State's Exhibit number 81A into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Proceed without objection.
Upon looking at the packaging, does it appear that you may have collected it yourself?
Yes.
On March 2nd of 2011, were you still involved in the investigation of this incident?
Yes, sir.
Had you obtained a court order to secure from the defendant a saliva sample from her mouth for potential DNA testing?
Yes, sir.
And to that end, did you meet with Ms. Schenecker and actually obtain a swab from her mouth?
Yes, sir.
Show you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit number 84. From the packaging and its contents, do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, sir.
And what do you recognize that to be, sir?
My handwriting with her information on it.
Okay, is that the swab that was taken from, the saliva swabbing obtained from the mouth of the defendant on March 2nd, 2011 pursuant to court order?
Yes, sir.
And was that packaged and secured, placed in Tampa evidence room,
Yes, sir.
and ultimately submitted to Florida Department of Law Enforcement for testing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would move State's Exhibit 84 into evidence.
No objection, Judge.
Proceed without objection.
Judge, I will tender the witness.
May cross-examine, sir.
Judge, I have no questions for this witness at this time.
It is the state's intent to recall Detective Sandell on the subject of the interview.
It's my understanding as well, Judge, and I don't have any questions for him as of this particular part of his examination.
All right. Sir, you may step down. You are subject to recall. You have to remain available.
Yes, sir.
State of Florida calls Parker Schenecker.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please write it.
Ray Parker.
Thank you. Please state your name, sir, and spell your last name for us.
Parker Schenecker, Schenecker.
What is your present occupation, sir?
I work for the Department of Defense as a civilian employee.
Where do you reside?
I reside here in Tampa.
And your age, sir?
I'm 51 years old.
Have you previously served in the military?
Yes, sir.
What branch?
The Army, United States Army.
For how long had you served?
27 years, sir.
And did you retire from the military?
Yes, sir.
And what year?
2011.
Where were you located, assigned when you retired?
I was assigned at United States Central Command, MacDill Air Force Base here in Tampa.
What was your rank at retirement?
So I retired as a colonel.
Can you give us a general broad brush idea of your responsibilities in your last assignment at MacDill?
Yes, sir.
And what would those have been?
Sir, my broad responsibilities were to take care of a force that was not only stationed here in Tampa at MacDill, but also a force of over 500 who were stationed throughout the Middle East. My responsibilities were to provide them not only national level policy, everything all the way down to logistical support as well.
And for layman logistical support, what does that mean, sir?
Sure, it would mean coordinating things like places for my folks to live, contracts for them to eat and subsist, security for them to stay alive and to be protected.
Did that position of responsibility require you to travel?
Yes, sir.
And at times did it require you to travel overseas?
Yes, sir, primarily.
Okay. Would it have required you to travel to locations where there was armed combat
Yes, sir.
occurring? Can you tell the jury, please, your educational background?
Sir, I have a bachelor's degree in French from Washington and Lee University I obtained in 1984. I have a master's degree in strategic studies from the United States Army War College, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, that I acquired in 2007.
What is your marital status presently?
Sir, I am divorced.
From whom are you divorced?
Julie Schenecker, the defendant.
Okay. When did you marry her?
Sir, we were married in 1991.
Where did that marriage take place?
So that marriage took place in New Orleans, Louisiana.
When had you met the defendant first?
So I met the defendant back in Munich, Germany, around the 1987 or 88 timeframe.
Was she in the military at that time?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what her assignment or specialty was when you met her?
So when I met her, she was a Russian linguist who was debriefing folks who were coming over from the former Soviet bloc for information to help with some of their asylum.
And to your knowledge, did the defendant have a college education?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, sir, what year were you married again?
1991, sir, we did a Justice of the Peace service, and then we had a church service in 1992.
And what was the date of your divorce, sir? The year of your divorce?
The year of my divorce was 2011, sir.
Okay. So you were married for approximately 20 years?
Yes, sir.
During the 20-year marriage, did you and the defendant have any children?
Yes, sir, we did.
How many and what were their names?
Sir, we had two children. Our daughter was Calix Power Schenecker, born the 12th of September 1994. And our son was Powers Bo Schenecker, born the 29th of September 1997.
So at the time of their deaths, was Calix 16 and Bo 13 years old?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did your military service require you and your family to move, to relocate during the course of your marriage?
Yes, sir. Our family, just like every other military family.
And during that marriage, can you give us some ideas of the locations where you and your family were stationed?
Sir, in married life, we were stationed in Munich, Germany, followed by Sierra Vista, Arizona, followed by back into Germany again for another 3-year tour. After that to Kansas for 1 year. After Kansas to Hawaii for almost 3 years. From Hawaii to Virginia for almost 3 years. From Virginia back to Germany for 3 years. From Germany to Maryland for a year, Pennsylvania for a year, and then Tampa.
Okay. What was your assignment in Pennsylvania prior to moving to Tampa?
So I was at graduate school at the United States Army War College.
From which you obtained the degree you referred to moments ago?
Yes, sir.
And did your wife and children reside with you in Pennsylvania?
Yes, sir, they did.
Did they move to Tampa with you when you were reassigned and relocated?
Yes, sir.
And when you were reassigned and relocated, did you change or add any vehicles suitable for Florida?
Oh, yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
Sir, when we were coming out of a very cold climate, we've had a really tough winter. I purchased a convertible vehicle for my ex-wife.
What type of vehicle was that?
So it was an Audi convertible.
Okay. You moved to Tampa in what year again, sir?
July of 2007, sir.
All right. Did the defendant later trade that Audi convertible in for another vehicle?
Yes, sir.
What type of vehicle?
It was a previously owned Mercedes E350, I believe, sir.
Did you ultimately settle with your family in a home in the Tampa Palms neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that at 16305 Royal Park Court?
Correct, sir.
States 1, please. Showing you States 1 on the screen. Is this a photograph of the front of the house that appeared in January 2011?
Yes, sir. That's our home in Tampa Palms.
A 2-story residence, sir?
Yes, sir.
A 3-car garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as of January of 2011, were both you and your wife and your 2 children living at this residence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where was Calix going to school at that time?
Sure. At that time, she was in the International Baccalaureate program at King High School here in Tampa.
Okay. Is that a challenging educational program?
Yes, sir. A highly competitive college preparatory program.
What year of school was she in?
Sir, she was a sophomore.
Was she driving herself to school back then?
She had a learner's permit, but she was not driving herself at that time.
Okay. How was she getting to King High School at that time?
Sir, she was in a carpool with a few other students who were in our local area.
Where was Bo going to school at that time?
Bo was going to school at Liberty Middle School.
And what grade was he at that time?
He was an 8th grader.
How was Bo getting to school?
Sir, he was taking the bus.
What type of automobiles did your family own in 2011 January?
January 2011, at that time we had a white Honda Odyssey van. We had a black Volkswagen Passat and a black Volkswagen CC.
Okay. Was there one of those three vehicles that you drove primarily?
Yes, sir.
Which one, sir?
That was the Volkswagen CC.
And as of January 28th of 2011, what vehicles or vehicle did Julie Schenecker primarily drive?
Primarily at that time, sir, she was driving the Volkswagen Passat.
Okay. And at times, well, to your knowledge, was she involved in the carpool at that
Oh, yes,
time?
sir.
And when she was driving carpool, what vehicle would she normally drive?
The van, sir, to have enough room for the kids.
Okay. Can you give us an idea, if you recall, how often through the preceding year, 2010 approximately, did you travel for the military?
So I traveled quite extensively during my time in 2010.
How long would those trips take you away from your family?
Sir, there were some trips here in the United States. Those were normally maybe 48 to 72-hour trips, maybe all travel included. There were plenty of times, though, where I had to fly to the Middle East. Those in 2010, I had no longer deployments. They were maybe 10 to 14 days at a time in 2010.
All right. During those trips, were you able to communicate with your family?
From time to time, yes, sir.
Through what means?
Sir, there were various means for communication for us. Emails, sometimes telephone, regular telephone line. Had some online video capability like Skype or like a FaceTime sort of capability, as well as written letters.
Okay. In addition to 2010, over the course of your marriage, even after your children were born, was it unusual for you to have business requirements trips, business trips on a normal basis?
I had normal business trips, yes, sir.
Okay. And did your wife, Julie Schenecker, ever complain about your travel?
Never.
Okay. How long had she served in the military?
So I believe she served just shy of 10 years active duty.
During the course of your marriage, was it unusual for there to be alcohol in the house?
No, sir.
How would you describe the frequency or the course of alcohol consumption by you and your wife during the course of your marriage?
Sir, my alcohol consumption was, as a social drinker, I might have a drink or two a week at the most.
And up until 2010, how would you describe the defendant's alcohol consumption?
Sir, about the same. Social drinkers, maybe a glass of wine with dinner, maybe a drink or two with a special occasion.
By the fall of 2010, had you become concerned that the defendant's drinking had increased and was becoming a problem?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall where you were on September 11th of 2010?
Yes, sir.
Where were you, sir?
We were in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Who was there with you?
My family. So my family would have been my ex-wife, Calix, and Bo. We were there for a family gathering.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes. questions, sir.
May we reapproach for clarification so I don't, I can... Sir, how were your ex-wife and your daughter, Calix, getting along in the fall of 2010?
So they had a strained relationship in the fall of 2010.
Okay. From your observation and discussion with your wife, did you understand the source or the reasons underlying the strain in their relationship?
Yes, sir.
And what did you understand those to be?
I believe at that time it was what was communicated to me by the defendant was that she was having struggles with our daughter, that our daughter was at times being disrespectful to her and just non-communicative, and was just having some struggles, sir.
Did you take any steps to discuss the strain with your daughter?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And did you, without going into the details of it, but did you provide fatherly advice and counseling for your daughter?
Yes, sir.
Did that include the necessity for her to respect her mother?
Yes, sir, it did.
Despite your discussions with your daughter, did the relationship between Calix and the defendant ever improve in any significant manner between the fall of 2010 and the children's deaths?
No, sir, the relation did not improve.
During that time period, did you take any affirmative steps to try to diffuse the situation?
Yes, sir.
And what did those steps include?
Sir, one of those steps was to try to find an opportunity for an alternate school for Calix to attend.
And an alternate school, would that have included boarding schools out of the cities?
Yes, sir, that was the primary focus, to give her enough space to allow both of them to let the situation settle down.
And to that end, to your knowledge, did Calix initiate the application process to a number of boarding schools, including Groton in Connecticut?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the time of her death, did you have any plans to travel with Calix to visit any such boarding school?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What was the purpose for that trip?
So the purpose of that trip was to give Calix an opportunity to do what's called shadowing at a school, where you get an opportunity to visit the school, visit with students, live in a dormitory, and get a taste of the life of a day in the school for a day or two.
And you were going to travel with her on that trip?
Yes, sir.
Did you assist her in the application process to that school and to others?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at the time of her death, did she already have scheduled an independent or an entrance exam, so to speak, that would qualify for her for entrance to a number of independent schools?
Correct, sir.
Okay. In addition to attempting to diffuse the situation in that regard, did you initiate any steps for Calix to have another source of discussion about her relationship with her mother?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that.
Sir, I initiated individual counseling for Calix. I got it set up through our insurance, and she was attending individual counseling with a counselor up in Tampa Palms.
Okay. Did you personally observe any negative and antagonistic discourse between your ex-wife and Calix?
Personally view them a couple of times maybe at a dinner table, but most of them were relayed to me by one or the other.
Okay. At times in your discussions with your ex-wife, did she describe to you events, discussions, disagreements, arguments with her daughter Calix?
Yes, sir.
And did you discuss with her your view of her reaction to Calix?
Yes, sir, I did.
What do you recall about those discussions?
Objection, hearsay.
What I said to my ex-wife was that she needed to be the adult in the relationship, that she was reverting to childish tactics with a child, and it was not getting anywhere. It was not getting anyone anywhere.
Was the defendant receptive to your suggestion and analysis?
No, sir.
Did Calix actually attend counseling that you set up for her?
Yes, sir, she did.
Did you and Calix and Bo and the defendant ever attend family counseling in the weeks and months leading up to the children's murder?
Yes, sir.
Who initiated or suggested the family counseling?
I believe Julie and I had a discussion about it. I can't remember who was the absolute genesis, but I recommended that we go to a counselor that already knew Julie and knew her background and knew her situation. It would be much easier for the three of us to join those sessions than it would be for all of us to start with someone new.
And so did you participate in such counseling with the defendant and your children?
Yes, sir.
On January 13th of 2011, was that a special day within the family?
Yes, sir.
And for what purpose?
Sir, that was my ex-wife's 50th birthday.
And did you and the family do anything to recognize her birthday?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
Sir, we went out to dinner at a restaurant called Benedetto's up in New Tampa, up kind of north of town.
All right.
And when I say we, it was Julie, Calix, Bo, and myself.
Okay. And was that in 2011 or 2010, her 50th birthday? Do you recall?
That was 2011, sir.
2011, okay. By that birth date in January 13th, had you already plans for a deployment overseas to begin a few days later?
Yes, sir, quite a bit before that.
Okay. Had you communicated to the defendant those plans?
Yes, sir, had communicated verbally as well as written my schedule down on the paper calendar you showed earlier.
Okay. What was the length of your deployment?
That deployment was approximately 10 days, sir. 10 to 14 days.
And was, excuse me, let me show you the calendar, please. Let me show you what's in evidence as State's Exhibit 18A. Is the length of your deployment, well, first, are you familiar with this calendar?
Yes, sir, I am.
And this was retrieved by a crime scene tech from a kitchen counter that I've described as over or atop a wine cooler. Was that its normal placement?
Correct.
Okay. Before we get into the actual calendar, was a written calendar used by you and Julie Schenecker to note family events or appointments, things of that nature?
Yes, sir, it was an opportunity for us to coordinate.
Okay. There's a variety of yellow, pink, and green stickies on that. Is that unusual?
No, sir, that is normal.
Okay. And is your trip that was planned for you to be deployed out of the country in January of 2011 noted on this calendar?
Yes, sir, it is.
And how's it noted?
Sir, it's noted to start on Wednesday, the 19th. In my handwriting, it says P, that's how I was referred to Afghanistan. Then with a line that continues from the 19th with an arrow through the 22nd, another line through the next week with an arrow through the 29th with Afghanistan written on the top, and the next week, starting the 30th, a line written through with a stop date of Tuesday the 1st of February.
Okay. Now, were there ever occasions during your marriage where, well, excuse me, let me step back from that question. Was your mother still alive in January of 2011?
Yes, sir.
And is she alive today?
Yes, sir.
Her name?
Nancy Schenecker.
All right. Where was your mother living in January of 2011?
January 2011, she was in New Orleans, or Covington, Louisiana at the time.
Were there times throughout your marriage where your mother would travel to wherever you and the defendant were living to assist the family for, among other reasons, when you were out of the country on trips?
Yes, sir. She visited us both when we needed her to come in when I was gone, but also just for normal occasions as well, birthdays and Christmas.
Okay. And had she been in your home that you shared with the defendant in November and December of 2010 to assist the family?
Yes, sir.
Had she returned, your mother returned back to Covington, Louisiana, though, before Christmas of 2010?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, with your planned deployment for approximately 10 days to begin on January 19th of 2011, did you have a conversation with the defendant a few days beforehand to determine whether she needed any assistance with the family while you were gone?
Yes, sir, I did.
Sustained as to the form of the question, Counsel.
Did you have any conversation with the defendant a few days prior to your departure on January 19th where you discussed your impending departure?
Yes, sir, I did.
Tell us about that, please.
Sir, 2 to 3 days before I was to depart on the 19th, I was in our bedroom in which we were both residing at that time. There were no problems there. And asked my ex-wife, I reminded her I'm leaving in a few days, just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Are you going to be okay with me being gone for a couple of weeks?
Okay. What did the defendant say?
Well, and then I added on to that, I said, if there's a problem, I can ask Nancy to come in, or I can find someone else to come in. The defendant at that time looked me square in the eye and said, I got this.
When you left, did you in fact leave for your overseas deployment of 10 days on January 19th of 2011?
January 19th, yes, sir.
Okay. At that time, did you have any concern for the safety of your children residing alone with your wife?
None whatsoever.
During the course of your marriage, were firearms kept in the family home?
Never.
To your knowledge, at the time that Julie Schenecker was in the Army, had she received regular training in firearms usage?
Yes, and I know that because she would come home from time to time, having gone to a range, and had discussed with me her score or shown me her target.
So in January 19th of 2011, to your knowledge, there were no firearms within the residence, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Prior to your departure on January 19th of 2011, had the defendant ever discussed with you any concerns about the crime in the neighborhood of Tampa Palms or nearby?
No, sir.
Prior to your departure on January 19th of 2011, did the defendant ever discuss with you in any fashion any concern that she had as a result of you not being home for her own safety or the safety of the children?
No, sir, never.
Did you communicate with your family during that 10-day trip, sir?
Yes, sir.
And how, sir?
My routine was when I would arrive, my first part of embarkation usually was Gutter, the country of Gutter, Q-A-T-A-R. And as soon as I hit the ground and could get a signal, I would send kind of a standard email that said, I'm in Q. And I would send that to Julie, most of the time to Calix and Bo, to my mother, my brother, and a few concerned friends.
During the time that you were out of the country after your January 19th departure, did you have specific communication where you could see your children?
Yes, sir.
On how many occasions do you recall?
In this 2011 trip, sir?
Yes, sir.
I can recall one video teleconference, one video session.
And when was that in relation to Thursday, January 27, 2011?
So that was Wednesday, January 26, 2011.
And were you able to communicate with both of your children through essentially a video Skype call or
Yes,
something
sir.
analogous to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Without going into the subject of conversation, was there ever anything about your communication with your children during that call that caused you any concern or alarm for their safety?
No, sir. Lots of smiles.
How and when did you learn of your children's deaths?
Sir, I was informed at 10 p.m. on, and that would be Gutter time, Q-A-T-A-R time, on, I believe it was the 28th of January.
Okay. Did you immediately return to Tampa?
The first flight I could get out the next morning, yes, sir.
Okay. States Exhibit 4, please, if you would. Can you see that from where you're seated, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
And I'll put a copy of the actual photograph in front of you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
States Exhibit number 4 is previously identified as a photograph of two sticky notes found attached to the glass portion of your front door of your residence on January 28th of 2011. Do you recognize the handwriting on these two notes?
Yes, sir.
And whose handwriting do you recognize this to be?
Sir, that's the handwriting of my ex-wife.
The defendant?
The defendant, yes, sir.
And just so I don't have to keep prompting you with the defendant, You have only one ex-wife, one marriage and one ex-wife?
One marriage, yes, sir. One ex-wife.
Now, sir, do you have the photo in front of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Attaching the sticky notes to the actual glass of the door appears to be some object at the top of the notes. Do you see that?
I do on both of them, yes, sir.
Are you familiar with what that is?
Yes, sir.
And what is it and how are you familiar with it?
Sir, that's a packing tape, light brown in color, fairly opaque, that we had a roll of that sitting around the house probably at all times, just because of the number of times we moved. We always had packing tape around. I can see the perforations at the top.
State's Exhibit 73, please. Let's actually go to... Thank you. Let's go to 72 if we may, please. Showing you what's in evidence is State's Exhibit number 72. Do you need...
No, sir.
Okay. Is this the interior of your garage?
Yes, sir.
There appears to be a number of common family items stored in the middle of it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was it a three-car garage?
Yes, sir.
In January of 2011, did you routinely park 3 cars in the garage when you were home?
No, sir.
Okay. Tell us about what the routine or habit was of the family and where the cars were parked.
Yes, sir. So as we're facing the front of the garage, as you see on the right, is actually a one door, but it's a 2-car garage. To the left, again, the perspective of this photo, where the Odyssey van is parked, is a 1-car garage. That 1-car garage was primarily mine for the vehicle I was driving at the time. Normally, the van would be parked out in between the 2 doors.
In the driveway?
In the driveway, in the driveway, to allow my car on the right and the car that Julie was driving on the left to have easier access to the garage.
Okay.
And then the car that Julie would be driving primarily, whatever that was at the time, would be parked where you can see the front, the passenger hood area of the VW Passat.
Okay. So, in a nutshell, your usual parking space is where the van is shown in this photograph.
Yeah.
State's Exhibit 72. All right, 18B, if you would, please. And returning State's Exhibit number 18A to you, sir, the actual cabinet taken from the kitchen. I'm drawing your attention to the yellow sticky note on the top part of that counter, second from the left. Do you see that note, sir?
I do, sir.
And is that attached to part of Monday and part of Tuesday at the top of the calendar?
Yes, sir.
Could you read what that sticky note says, sir?
So that sticky note says, "Sorry about your parking space, dash, had to leave it for Bo, period, in parentheses, my darling, precious child."
Did you recognize that handwriting?
Yes, sir, I do.
And as...
That's the handwriting of the defendant.
Thank you. And as we saw on the last photograph, State's Exhibit 72, was the white van parked where you normally parked your Volkswagen CC?
Yes, sir, the white van was parked in my parking space.
Okay. Now, You were expected to return on February 1st of 2011 from your trip overseas, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Would you just change or pull this to the next month of February 2011?
Yes, sir. This is February 2011.
And if we could go to 18D, please, as in door. All right. Handwritten in the square for Tuesday, February 1 is the word Bo is in the van, in parentheses, on the way to practice. Kaylee is in her bed, close parentheses, tried to make her comfortable. Are you familiar? Do you recognize whose handwriting that is?
Yes, sir, I do.
And whose handwriting do you recognize that to be?
Sir, I recognize that handwriting to be the defendant's handwriting.
Written in a block on the day that you were supposed to return?
Yes, sir, correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. State's Exhibit 19A, please. Do you recognize the brown purse shown in this photograph, which was taken from the counter next to the calendar that we've just been referring to?
Yes, sir.
Whose purse was that?
Sure, that would be the purse of the defendant.
Was that a purse that she routinely used?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit number 19C. D, the door, please. Okay. Showing you 19C, which is a photograph of a lock and load receipt, and it's showing you, handing to you, the actual 19D, the actual receipt itself. Have you ever been to Lock and Load gun store before January 28th of 2011?
No, sir.
Had the defendant ever discussed with you Lock and Load gun store on or prior to January 28th of 2011?
No, sir.
During the course, by 2011, you'd been living in Tampa somewhat over 3 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To your knowledge, how much time, had you ever spent much time with the defendant in Oldsmar, Florida, in Pinellas County?
Sure, I can remember going to Oldsmar once, just driving around for a day.
Okay. Was it ever your practice while you were married with Julie Schenecker to visit gun stores or gun shows?
No, sir.
Had the defendant ever spoken to you about visiting or spending any time in Oldsmar?
No, sir.
Do you know from your observation and conversation with the defendant, did she have any familiarity with Oldsmar?
To my knowledge, sir, just the one time we had driven there together. I believe we ate lunch at a Subway.
Your Honor, having previously filed a notice of intent pursuant to Chapter 90.8036A and B, the state of Florida moves into evidence State's Exhibit number 98, a copy of business records pertaining to a business account at USA Savings Bank credit card and the attending affidavit.
No objection.
Receive without objection.
At the time of your departure in January 19th of 2011, did you and the defendant hold joint credit card accounts?
Yes, sir.
And did those credit card accounts require the signature of both of you to obtain credit purchases at any given time on those accounts? In other words, did both of you have to be present to sign?
No, sir, not to charge something to those accounts.
Okay. Do you recall what type of accounts without any great detail? Did you have a MasterCard, Visa?
Sir, 2 or 3 joint accounts. There were a primary card that we would use for most of the household expenses, and I think each of us had our own kind of individual card, if you would.
Okay. The joint accounts that you held with the defendant as far as credit card accounts, were those accounts that you would regularly monitor the activity and the balances on your joint credit card accounts?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Could do that online.
And did you do that regularly?
Yes, sir.
Sure, sir, I'm going to show you what's in evidence in States 98, a composite exhibit of records pertaining to a USAA Savings Bank MasterCard and Visa credit card account in the name of Julie Schenecker. Were you familiar, well first, USAA, is that a bank you're familiar with?
Yes, sir.
And why?
USAA caters their business to military members and their family members. It started as an insurance company, and they branched out to provide banking services as well.
Were you aware that Julie Schenecker had a credit card from this bank at the time of your departure in January of 2011?
I was aware that she had a credit card in her name. I had one in my name, and we had some jointly.
And were you aware of when she obtained this credit card?
Sure, I believe back around the 2005 timeframe, if my memory serves me well.
And was this account held only in Julie Schenecker's name, or were you on the account?
Sure, it was only in her name. She had her own USAA member number as well.
And did you have any access to this account to monitor it?
No, sir.
I have paperclipped a specific page in that paperwork. I'd like you to take a look at it if you would. And does that page of the document reflect a charge from Lock and Load gun store on January 22nd of 2011 for the purchase price of approximately $599?
Yes, sir, exactly.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's, one second now. No, I need to focus right here. Let's do it out so we can get the line. I need to get the whole line if I may. Can you adjust that, please? All right, that's good. Thank you. All right. Okay. So while you were overseas deployed in January of 2011, did you have any way of accessing information so that you could become aware of the purchase on this credit card account in Julie Schenecker's name at Lock and Load Oldsmar for a firearm in the amount of $599?
No, sir, I did not.
Step up, counsel, if you would. To about a 20-minute break. We'll give you a break so you can get up and move around.